A black street musician pours his soul into every note, his fingers dancing over the worn strings of his guitar. The melody he weaves threads through the bustling city streets, touching the hearts of hurried passers-by who pause, if only for a moment, to listen. His name is Marcus, and his music tells stories of love, loss, hope, and dreams yet to be realized. Underneath the flickering glow of a street lamp, Marcus stands with his eyes closed, swaying gently to the rhythm he creates. The city's cacophony fades into the background, and all that exists is the harmony between him and his instrument. Each chord resonates with emotion, a language universal and profound. Coins clink into the open guitar case at his feet, but he hardly notices. His mind is elsewhere, lost in the melodies that flow from his heart. A small crowd gathers, drawn by the soulful sounds that contrast sharply with the urban noise. A young couple holds hands, their faces softening as they listen. An elderly man taps his cane to the beat, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Even a group of teenagers pauses their chatter, momentarily captivated by the music. Marcus opens his eyes and sees them, the diverse tapestry of people united by his song. It fills him with a quiet joy, knowing that, in this moment, his music bridges gaps and brings people together. He transitions into a lively tune, fingers flying over the strings with practiced ease. The crowd responds with light applause and appreciative murmurs. But not everyone is pleased. A stern-faced businessman pushes through the crowd, casting a disapproving glance at Marcus. "Some of us are trying to work," he mutters, but Marcus doesn't let it faze him. He's encountered cynics before, and he knows he can't please everyone. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, Marcus decides to play one last song, a haunting ballad his grandmother used to sing to him. The notes are soft and melancholy, filled with a yearning that seems to echo off the buildings around him. The crowd quiets, sensing the depth of emotion in the melody. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. Marcus notices a figure approaching, a police officer, uniform crisp and expression unreadable. The officer stops a few feet away, arms crossed. Marcus feels a knot form in his stomach but continues to play, his notes faltering slightly. "Excuse me," the officer says, his tone firm but not unkind. "Do you have a permit to perform here?" Marcus stops playing and looks up. "No, sir. I wasn't aware I needed one." The officer sighs. "Street performances require a permit in this area. I'm going to have to ask you to move along." Marcus feels a wave of disappointment but nods. "I understand. I'll pack up." The crowd disperses, some people casting sympathetic glances his way. A little girl tugs at her mother's sleeve. "Why is he leaving?" she asks. "Come on, sweetie," her mother replies softly, leading her away. Marcus kneels to gather his belongings, carefully placing his guitar in its case. The officer watches him, his gaze softening slightly. "You play beautifully," he says after a moment. "Thank you," Marcus replies, surprised. "Look, I don't make the rules, but I have to enforce them," the officer continues. "Maybe you can get a permit and come back?" Marcus shrugs. "I'll see what I can do." He hoists the guitar case over his shoulder and walks away, the weight of the day settling upon him. The streets seem colder now, shadows stretching long under the streetlights. He considers heading home, but knows that his small apartment will feel even emptier. As he walks, he passes a cafe with large windows glowing warmly against the night. Inside, people laugh and converse over steaming cups of coffee. On an impulse, he enters, the bell above the door chiming softly. He orders a coffee and sits at a corner table, placing his guitar case beside him. The warmth of the cafe seeps into his bones, and he allows himself a moment to relax. Lost in thought, he doesn't notice when someone approaches. "Mind if I join you?" a voice asks. Marcus looks up to see a man about his age, dressed casually, with an open and friendly expression. "Sure," Marcus replies. The man sits down, extending his hand. "I'm Daniel. I heard you playing earlier. You were incredible." "Thank you," Marcus says, shaking his hand. "I'm Marcus." They chat for a while, and Marcus learns that Daniel is a music producer, always on the lookout for new talent. "I'd love to work with you," Daniel says. "Your music has real soul. Have you ever considered recording?" Marcus hesitates. "I've thought about it, but I wouldn't know where to start." Daniel smiles. "Well, you're in luck. I can help you with that. Why don't you come by my studio tomorrow? We can talk more then." Marcus feels a spark of excitement. "That sounds great. They exchange contact information, and Daniel leaves with a friendly wave. Marcus sits there for a moment, processing what just happened. The disappointment of earlier begins to fade, replaced by a cautious optimism. The next day, Marcus arrives at the address Daniel provided. The building is unassuming from the outside, but inside, it's a hive of creative activity. Daniel greets him warmly and shows him around the studio. They spend the day discussing music, influences, and potential projects. Daniel listens attentively as Marcus plays, offering constructive feedback and enthusiastic encouragement. For the first time in a long while, Marcus feels seen, not just as a street musician, but as an artist. Over the following weeks, they work together to produce a demo. Marcus pours his heart into the recordings, infusing each track with the raw emotion that defines his music. Daniel is impressed by his dedication and talent. One afternoon, after a particularly successful recording session, Daniel turns to Marcus. "I think we're ready to share this with the world," he says. Marcus feels a mix of excitement and nerves. "Do you really think people will like it?" "I don't just think, they will," Daniel assures him. "Your music speaks to people. It spoke to me, and I know it will resonate with others." They decide to release one of the songs online. Daniel handles the technical aspects, and within days, the track begins to gain attention. Positive comments pour in, praising Marcus's soulful voice and heartfelt lyrics. As the song's popularity grows, invitations start coming in, small venues at first, but soon larger ones. Marcus finds himself performing on stages he once only dreamed of, sharing his music with attentive audiences who hang on every note. One evening, after a well-received performance at a local theatre, Marcus steps outside to find the police officer who had asked him to move along standing near the entrance. For a moment, old anxieties resurface, but then the officer approaches with a smile. "Marcus, right?" the officer says. "Yes," Marcus replies cautiously. "I saw your performance. You were outstanding." "Thank you," Marcus says, surprised. The officer extends his hand. "I wanted to apologize for the other night. I was just doing my job, but I realize now that I might have been too rigid. I'm glad to see you're sharing your music in a bigger way." Marcus shakes his hand. "I appreciate that. No hard feelings." They part ways, and Marcus feels a sense of closure. The journey from street corners to stages hasn't been easy, but moments like this make it all worthwhile. Later that night, Marcus returns to his apartment. He sits by the window, looking out over the city lights. His guitar rests beside him, ever his faithful companion. He reflects on how much has changed in such a short time. He thinks about the people who have supported him, Daniel, the audiences, even the officer in his own way. He considers the power of music to connect, to heal, and to bridge divides. Marcus picks up his guitar and begins to play, the notes flowing effortlessly. He knows there will be challenges ahead, but he's ready to face them. His journey is just beginning, and he can't wait to see where the music will take him next.